Folks, let's come to order here. Let's get down to business as the big day is coming right up. Unfortunately, I have to kick things off with some bad news. Mr. Parsnip called me and he was unable to drop his tail. The police were hot on his tracks, so that means he is out for the upcoming event. Now I understand if anyone wouldn't want to go forward. We have a confirmed police presence on the tail of one of our people. I know everyone here feels they are free of surveillance. Yeah. Well, the score is good. I think we should move, but everyone needs to decide for themselves, yeah? I'm an action is the juice kind of guy, so I want to get this done. Awesome to hear that. I think it's the right decision. Let's just stay alert. Now, of course, with Mr. Parsnip being out, we are going to need a new getaway driver, given that was his core competency. I think it's going to have to be you. Yeah. I would do it, but you know I have to be inside with the safe. And everyone's got a clear role around that. It really has to be you. Well, have you ever done any performance driving? If you've never done this on a score before? No. What about go-karting, short track racing, anything? You drive a forklift. Okay, well that's sort of relevant. I'll tell you what. Let's go over the plan, and then I will give you my Cliff's Notes performance driving course. Just get you up to speed on the concepts, give you enough to get by out there for your first score. We'll do a little classroom learning, and then we can get out and do some practical moves, okay? Yeah. All right, sounds good. Everyone okay? We just gotta make do in this kind of situation, you know? We're resilient. We're capable. We're professionals. All right. So let's have a look at the map here. Just unfold this. Los Santos is a big city. So we have a big map. So the bank is located at the corner of Vinewood and Alta. It's on the northeast corner. So we're up here. The good thing about the location is we've got major avenues that give us visibility and room to work with for escape. Can get into the city, try to lose any pursuers on the smaller roads, though of course our number one goal, low profile, no one even knows we're the ones with the money. You can also get out up into the heights. A little more limited in the territory there, but it is an option. And of course, access to freeways as needed. We'll aim to swap cars in a nearby parking garage so that we can make a clean getaway. Shouldn't need any drama or heroics, but as always, if we need to, we're ready. Okay? So, the main crew goes in. You bring the getaway vehicle down Vinewood, 30 seconds behind. Hang a right on Alta. You'll park right in front of the bank, so you're ready for the egress. Once they come out with the money, you will trail us on the entry so as not to draw initial attention before the action begins. And you'll be ready to pull out, loop around, and head for the parking garage. When I exit, of course, I will have my motorcycle, and I will go the opposite direction, going west on Vinewood to leave the area. Okay? Everyone clear on that? We will do a reconnoiter tomorrow. Just one last look at all of the routes. Make sure nothing has changed in the area. So we'll be all set to go, okay? Alright, if that sounds good, I will work with our driver here. You all take it easy and stay frosty. Okay. Now, first test is to fold the map. And if you can't do it, you're off the score. I got it. Voila. Let's talk a little about performance driving. You can maximize potential of the car to help us escape any unwanted interference from the law enforcement community. First things first, driving gloves. Definitely get yourself a pair. Well, for two reasons. One, hands might get a little sweaty, even though I know you're a cool, calm, and collected professional. There's a lot of anticipation on a score. Can't help, you're going to get some adrenaline. I know you're not going to be nervous. You might get a little bit of sweaty palm action going. Having the glove will help you keep a good, solid grip on the wheel, which is critical. You need to be in control of that vehicle at all times. You don't want that wheel slipping through your grasp, and with it, the opportunity at this score. Reason two, some cop stops you for no reason. He sees you've got driving gloves on. He just thinks you're some snooty rich guy, not the low-life bank robber that you are, right? And that is our goal. We're low key, low profile, good law-abiding citizens, not up to anything, right? Driving gloves, then the most important thing for driving that car fast is a good seating position. Yeah, I know you're thinking turbochargers and big wide tires, but to maximize that performance, you need to be able to feel what's going on with the car. You need to be situated properly in the seat. We want a low center of gravity. I'll talk about that. To help maximize our performance. And you need to be able to manipulate the wheel, turn the wheel as far around in one direction as we can. Alright? So when you get in the car, you want to get in as low as you can. You need to be able to reach the pedals. You need to be able to reach the steering wheel. We're going to be gripping at 9 and 3. And you need to be able to make a full turnaround without losing grip on the wheel because you're too far away or it's too close. You can't turn that bottom and you get jammed against your body. This is critical. Okay? That's going to give you maximal command of the vehicle. You find your seating position. You're going to adjust your mirrors. Maximum visibility. One, a key for safe driving in general. Two, if you've got a tail, you need to make sure that you can keep tabs on them. Okay? Grab this here. It's a steering wheel. As I said, if it's a clock, we need to grab at 9 and 3. That gives us maximum range of motion. Try to get a car that has sporty enough steering. Any of the turns you're doing, that should be as much movement as you'll need. If you need more, right, of course, can one hand over the other, spin. We're always keeping a hand solidly on the wheel. We never take them off, hoping it'll straighten on its own. The other alternative, which probably as much as you'll need to keep a firm grip, you can slide a hand over, take the grip, have it rotate, and then we can hold a tighter turning circle, feeding it back, positively gripping, and getting back to our 9 and 3. Don't want to see any of this. No resting your arm on the wheel. You don't have control over the vehicle if you're doing that. Really? Do you drive a forklift that way? You do? Okay. Well, 9 and 3, right? Talking about fast, not flash. Okay? I know the flash is fast, but what I'm saying is we are prioritizing going fast over looking good. Yeah, okay. Look, you want to screw around on your own score and get busted, that's fine. But that is not going to fly with these guys. You focus on the job that needs to be done. Capiche? You understand what I'm saying? Alright. So we have a good driving position. We have a good grip on the wheel. Not too tight, but not too loose. want to be able to feel the wheel is communicating from our tires, our bodies telling us how the car is moving, because of course you've buckled your seatbelt, as you always do whenever you're in a motor vehicle. All right? And during the score, you are Mr. Law-abiding citizen. You are a stealth fighter flying under the radar. We use our turn signals like we always do. We stop at red lights. We're not gunning it through yellows. We're not attracting attention, right? But if things go awry, we're going to put the pedal to the metal and we're going to get out of there. All right, so let's talk about what that looks like. So how do we go fast? Right, we want to go as fast as we can without losing control of the car. Sure, having a strong motor and all that is going to be important. But in any given car, we need to maximize the performance of our tires. Tires are where the rubber meets the road. Literally. This is where that phrase really applies. Everything that your car is capable of is going to be transmitted through those tires. That's braking, accelerating, or cornering. So we need to get the most out of them. So let's talk more about that. So to think about how much our tire can grip, is, the rubber, it sticks to the road, but there's a limited amount of grip available. It loses that adhesion when we start sliding. It can happen if we get on the brakes too hard and we lock up the wheel. Sure, anti-lock brakes help us there, but good to be able to do all this on your own. If we stomp on the gas too hard, we spin the tires, we don't go anywhere. Try to take a curve too fast, right? You slide out towards the outside of the bend because we've exceeded the grip available to us. And to represent this, draw what we can call the traction circle. Just how much force can the tire generate before it loses its grip? And we have rolling friction and static friction, but we'll focus on, we want to keep rolling friction. So this circle is the most force I can apply to my tire while still having grip. So, right, say I accelerate, put my foot on the gas, and not too hard. I'm not using the full grip of my tire, just this amount. So if I really get on the gas, I could go all the way up to the limit that the tire can stand, and that'll be my maximum acceleration, right? And that's what we would want, to go as fast as we can, right? But if I stomp on that pedal really hard and fast, suddenly I try to apply this much force, right? But that's outside the maximum grip. Now my wheel is spinning and I'm not able to apply that power to the road to move us forward. So we need to accelerate as hard as we can up to the limit of that tire. You apply any more and you're spinning. It's the same for braking, right? Just driving down the street like we're approaching the score. Get on the brakes at a red light. Smoothly come to a stop, no drama. You're just using part of the tire's capacity. some intoxicated D-grade actor jumps out in front of your car, you slam on the brakes and you exceed the grip of the tire. You tried to do more than the tire is capable of, and you lock up those brakes. Now you're skidding, and you're not slowing down as fast as you could be, as if you'd put the maximum pressure on the brake, but didn't go outside of our maximum grip. That would be the fastest you could slow down. And our anti-lock brakes try to keep us there. They feel the wheel locking, they'll let go of the brakes, it unlocks, they'll apply the brakes again, trying to keep you at that point. So you, at the wheel, your accelerator pedal and your brake pedal, are trying to feel that maximum point of grip in the tire. Hard on the accelerator as you can without spinning the wheels. As hard on the brakes as you can without locking them. You've got to feel that. Same story with cornering. Drive, we get a green light, and go around corner to the right. Just cruising, not doing anything wild. Right? We're using some of the tire's ability to corner. Now, heat's on our tail, we're making a getaway. You fly into a bend. Tires are squeaking just right at the point of breaking free, but you're going around that corner just as fast as you can. But at that point, you say, I could go faster, and you give it more gas, and you're trying to go around a corner faster than possible. Again, we can exceed our lateral grip of the tire. Now you're skidding. You're losing time that could have been spent shooting down the road. Watch those 70s car chase films, right? The rear end swings out, they're skidding, it looks dramatic, but they're going slow. Now those cars were a whole other story, but the point being, a tire limits how much grip we have available, and to go as fast as possible, we want to maximize that grip at all times. We're accelerating as hard as we can, we're braking as hard as we can, or we're cornering as hard as we can. Now, let's take another look at this. Same circle, or as close to one as I can draw. And actually, in reality, it's probably more of an ellipse, have a little more longitudinal braking and acceleration grip than you do lateral or cornering grip. But anyway, let's think about it as a circle, because it's just easier to talk about. But you'll need to feel in the car where the grip limits are. Now, if we accelerate as hard as we can, then we're coming to a corner. We brake as hard as we can, and then we slowly turn in, and then we turn to the max for that speed. That's actually slower than if we blend those actions together, but let's look at that. What happens if we're going through a corner and we're both cornering, going sideways, and we are accelerating? You're coming through a corner and you get back on the gas, right? The tire's doing two things at once. It's accelerating and it's cornering. So it's trying to go this direction, right? But if you're doing it at max, this limits how much that tire can do in that direction. But what does this mean? It means when we look at cornering, right, let's bring our straight line down. We are not cornering as much as we could be, right? And same for acceleration. If we draw a straight line over here, right? We are not getting as much acceleration as we would if we were in a straight line, right? We're at the maximum of our grip, but it's not at the maximum lateral grip and not at the maximum longitudinal grip, right? So when we're doing two things at once, we have less of each. Now it still can be valuable to do so because, let me draw another circle here, right? What we want to do for accelerating to the max, we always want to be using the maximum of the tire. So as we, say, switch to braking to get ready for a corner, we want to brake at the max. But then if we just stop braking and then we start turning, right, we had this period where we weren't doing the maximum with our tire. So what we actually want to do is track around that circle. We want to brake a little less, but start cornering. And here we're braking less and cornering more. That's right, you're easing off the brake as you are starting to turn more and more until we get to this point where you're completely off the brakes and at maximum turning potential. Right, so we want it to gradually transition because we're trying to use as much of our grip at all times as possible. Right, it's the same story when we want to get back on the accelerator. We don't want to wait until we get straight because we're just using less and less cornering but not using all this available grip. We want to start winding the wheel back as we feed in power. So we're staying at the limits of grip, turning as much as we can and accelerating as much as we can in that transition, like we were up here. So in these interim positions, we're not using as much lateral or longitudinal as we could, but we're maximizing our overall grip. So that's kind of a long, more technical way of saying you need to smoothly transition between the different states. You're going straight down the boulevard. You get on to the gas as hard as you can, accelerating as much as you can. You need to make a corner as part of your exit route. So you need to switch to braking as hard as you can. That needs to be a smooth transition as well. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment when we talk about weight transfer. So you get on the brakes as hard as you can without skidding. Just before that corner, then when you want to start turning in, you have to come off the brakes gradually, and you're turning more and more the more you come off the brakes, using the maximum grip until you're off the brakes fully. When you're at the maximum point of turning, you turn the wheel as much as you're going to turn it. You get through the corner. We call the middle of the corner the apex. You start unwinding the steering smoothly, but you're getting back on the gas, adding more and more gas, the less steering you're applying, until you're back at full throttle, going straight in the new direction. Now I say smoothly, but we're not talking like grandma. This happens quickly, but it has to be done in a smooth fashion. If you do it aggressively, you stomp on the gas too hard, you lose grip, your tire can't offer that to you, and you're sliding, spinning your wheels. Okay? So smooth transitions between these states, but done quickly, is going to allow you to maximize your available tire grip. And that's how you get the most out of your car. All right. So that's basically an ideal tire circle. But remember, we have 4 tires, right? Each one is supplying some amount of the total grip of the car. So we're going this way, right? So we're traveling down the road and now we want to apply our brakes. Right, so each wheel has a brake, each one contributing somewhat to the braking process. As we said, if you brake at maximum, you're going to go up to the edge of the traction circle, slowing you down as fast as you possibly can. Now this is kind of an idealized look at it, but something happens in the real world. Well, a million things happen in the real world, right? There's bumps, there's a pothole that's been repaired with different asphalt, there's dirt or sand on the road, all things that can influence the traction available. But what we're going to talk about now is weight transfer. This happens no matter what, but it's something that you can understand and utilize. So we have our vehicle here, this beautiful Mercedes G-Class. This is a good getaway vehicle. It's got seats for multiple people, important if you're carrying the crew. Space for equipment in back. Lots of power. Help you get away. Pretty flashy, except we are taking this score in the middle of Hollywood, so a car like this actually blends in that area. Alright, but it's an SUV, and as such, it has a higher center of gravity than some other cars. And what do we mean by center of gravity? So if you add up like all of the weight in this car, where's the theoretical spot where it is centered? Alright, it's going to be somewhere in the middle. The taller the car, the higher that center of gravity is. You can feel it by like where the balance point would be here. And why do I bring this up? So what happens when we apply the brakes? Well, physics says that center of gravity is going to keep moving in the direction it wants to move. So it's trying to go forward. The wheels are saying go back, right? What's happening? The car is tipping forward as you brake, because the center of gravity is up here, and a force applied at a distance from that is going to create a torque, rotating the car, right? Center of gravity is moving, push on the wheels, the car is now tilted. This means now, though, that more of the car's weight is on these front tires than on these back tires. That mass has shifted and now its weight is pressing down through the front wheels. So when we have a tire, its grip is predicated on the friction, how sticky that tire is compared to the surface it's on, and the weight applied. So the more weight you have on a tire, the more grip it has. If you've ever driven a light rear-wheel drive car in the snow, there's not a lot of weight back there. Very easy to spin the tires. So what does that mean for us? Well, as you start to apply the brakes, it looks like this. But as that weight transfers, now instead of being 4 equal circles, these front tires have more grip, and the back tires have less grip because they have less weight on them. If you transfer enough weight and you're hard enough on the brakes, you could be locking up the rear tires while you still have grip on the front. So if we left our brake pedal where it was, where we were trying to get maximum, now the front tires have more grip available. So as the weight transfers, you can apply more brake force to take advantage of that. Now, of course, that risks locking those rears since they have less grip. But brake balance in the car adjusted, so there'll be less braking force in the rear, so that is less likely to happen. In a performance vehicle or race car, you could adjust that to suit your needs, right? So as you brake, more weight on the front wheels, that weight transfer, you need to apply more brake pressure because, right, we're always trying to maximize our grip. If you kept it the same, you're not getting maximum brake effectiveness. Though your limit, of course, is locking some wheels, right? What about acceleration? Exact same story in reverse. Unless you're in reverse, and then it's the same. Anyway, we're accelerating. We have this much available to us. With one exception. Let's focus on rear-wheel drive. So we were accelerating our rear wheels as we apply acceleration. Right now we're pushing this way. The front end is coming up and weight is shifting onto the rear wheels. Why a lot of performance cars benefit from rear wheel drive. You get more grip as you accelerate, and you can apply more gas, keep yourself moving down the road, the maximum acceleration possible. Okay? Stuff you already basically intuitively feel, right, when you drive. Do a quick erase here. Again, we have 4 tires. This time, let's go around a corner. We're steering around the corner, the maximum rate of turn. We have all of our force vectors, maximizing the available grip of the tire. However, same principle applies. You start to turn the corner. What happens? The car tips outward. You feel it in the car. You're pushed to the side. That's why we want good supportive seats in a car to keep us held in. We can feel what the car is doing. So as we start to turn, the car is tipping. Right now my outside wheels have more grip than my inside wheels. So we're trying to turn this way. These wheels get more grip. And my inside ones now have less. If you combine this with braking, right, what happens? Might have the car tipping forward, and now you're turning at the same time. You've transferred your weight sideways and forward. Some cars could even lift this inside rear wheel. Stuff like that was more common in the old days. If you're pushing cars that are really not meant to be driven fast, hard. Modern cars just better and better at this stuff. So the key takeaway from that, right, is we talk about this circle maximum grip your tire can generate. But that is a dynamic scenario. As you go through a corner, get on the brakes, start to turn in, coming off the brakes, turning, getting back on the gas, right? The tires are all going to be loaded in different ways. And let's talk about a car like this, right? Is this a good getaway vehicle? No. Too flashy, both in design, the paint job, and being a convertible, clear views of our faces, inability to transport other members of the crew. Would it be fast? Yes. Would people be attracted to you because you were driving it? Yes. Those are not our goals, since it doesn't meet the other criteria. But a car like this, much lower center of gravity, right? Everything sits lower, right? So when it brakes, it still transfers weight. The perceived effects of that are going to be less, okay? So the type of car you're driving, may have a stiffer suspension. It's going to resist the movement of that. So different cars are going to have different properties. You're going to need to be tuned in to that. Of course, the other good thing about this option is if things do get dicey, then just deploy the blades. Right, okay. A couple last things. I think you do get it at this point. But let's talk about front wheel drive versus rear wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Let's not worry too much about four-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive. This will affect some of our getaway car selection. Our number one goal, right? Not being noticed at all. So Nissan Sentra, basically perfect. No one will ever pay attention to it. But it is a low-powered front-wheel drive car. Rear-wheel drive car, Dodge Charger or whatever, may give us lots of get up and go, but we don't want to be in some Hellcat screaming down the road, everyone looking at it, laying huge tracks of rubber. Fast, sure, but remember, we want to be under the radar. All-wheel drive, common in many SUVs, some other sedans like Subarus and Audi, that kind of thing. If we know we're going off-road, probably choose that. Audi would be a good choice. Blend in, comfortable, but some good performance available. Not sponsored. So what implications does this have, right? Let's start with rear-wheel drive. We have our tires here. With rear-wheel drive, when we accelerate, we're only using those rear wheels, right? And we said that will transfer weight and we'll get more grip available to us, which is a good thing, right? When we go to corner, only our front wheels steer, right? So those are available for maximum cornering grip, right? And in the rear, let's look at a rear tire, right? If we want to corner and we want to accelerate, because these are where our power comes from, right? That wheel is doing double duty, right? That's why it's easy if you're in a rear-wheel drive car going around a corner and you push hard on the gas, right? You can easily try to go more forward than we were currently. And that means the sum of this force exceeds our available grip and the rear of your car is sliding outward, right? So cornering and acceleration duties are shared. But again, the good thing is as you're leaving a corner, taking out that steering and getting on the gas, you're getting that weight shift onto your powered wheels, so you do have more grip available to you. Now you can see that a front-wheel drive may be a little bit less favorable to us, right? Because the rear wheels are just along for the ride. If we want to accelerate in a front-wheel drive car, right, all of that is done by our front wheels. But what happens? As we accelerate, remember, weight transfers rearward. Our tires that are along for the ride have more grip, but our tires that we're trying to accelerate with now have less. So it can be problematic. Then, as we start to corner, right, all of the work must be done both accelerating and turning by these front wheels. So you've probably experienced this if you're going around a corner, front wheel drive car, you're trying to give it more gas, you just start pushing out towards the outside. You don't turn in more because trying to give it more gas is taking away from that wheel's ability to turn you in by applying side forces. Right? So a little bit trickier to deal with since the tire only has so much grip and we need it to accelerate and turn us as well. Last, let's talk about all-wheel drive. Now, each wheel can supply power. We can use the maximum grip available to accelerate, of course. Weight transfers, so we have less up front, but more in the rear, even though those look the same size here. Don't blame my drawing. And what do we see with the same amount of power available to us? In a rear-wheel drive car, we can apply as much power as the grip lets us in the rear. Right, that's the accelerating force. So it's the same story. Let's say all other conditions are equal here. Right? We can apply that same amount of force in our all-wheel drive car. So so right now we're applying the same amount of forward power. Okay? But we also get this contribution from the front wheels. Right? And just gives us that little bit extra for accelerating. There are some other drawbacks here, right? The weight transfer limits that some. You have more mechanical components. It can be heavier. So these can offset some of these things, but generally allows you to get more power down, particularly early on in your acceleration. Just erase some of that. And let's look at why that is so critical. If we were on, say, gravel or ice, right? This is our available grip. As I said, right, it's defined by how well the tires can stick to the ground. In gravel, it's more slippery, right? The circle is smaller. You can apply less force before you've lost grip and are sliding. Snow and ice, right? Even more traumatic. We have much less grip available. Right? So on asphalt, we have more grip, so we have a larger force vector. We accelerate more quickly. It's going to be smaller on gravel and much smaller on ice. You apply the same gas here, right? You are spinning out. You're going nowhere. So let's look at that case For ice, we have reduced total grip. In our rear-wheel drive car, right, we get that much. And remember we said our all-wheel drive car, it's basically similar other than that, right? We get the same amount. But it also has available grip at the front and is powered. So we also get that benefit, right? So we have more grip available to us for transmitting power to the road in the all-wheel drive car in those reduced grip conditions, right? Again, if we had to go off-road in this thing, we'd be in an all-wheel drive car for that reason, okay? Last topic is actually cornering through bends and the line that you might take, as this has a significant impact on how fast you can go. Let's imagine a curve in a road, right? This curve has a particular radius, the distance from the center to the side of the curve. So, fastest we can go around that is this constant radius line. And why is that the case? Well, we have our equation for centripetal acceleration. That acceleration is that force, the maximum force we can generate, cornering force, is equal to v squared, v being our velocity, fast we are traveling, let's say, over that radius r, okay? So you can immediately see the implications here, right? The larger the radius of the curve, the faster we can go around that curve, right? And you know this to be true in practice, right? You know that you can travel this much faster than this tighter turn, right? And it's just really the straighter it is, the faster you can go, right? So in one sense, what we're trying to do is make these curves as straight as possible. And that leads us to adopting a different line through a curve like this. We'll come in from the outside, be braking hard, and then we'll turn a tighter curve to give us a wider curve on the exit, straightening it out. Trying to get as much of our acceleration in a straight line. Let's try to draw that a little better for you. This is a little bit because we were talking about longitudinal versus lateral force, but we're staying at high speed on our straight, brake as hard as we can, get turned in, and then back on the gas so we can accelerate in more of a straight line, widening this radius effectively. So that is the general principle as you're going through curves, right? You want to maximize speed in straights. You want to get through curves as quickly as you can and back on the power as soon as you can. trying to straighten it so the tire's not doing too much. But this is a deep topic. It's going to depend a lot on your different curves and the nature of the road that you're driving on. Just want to plant that seed. Generally, our principle is to get slow on the entry in order to go faster on the exit. Okay. And I know we're getting a bit technical here, but it's important to have a good foundation since our lives will be in your hands. And we are going to actually get on the road and try some things. A couple extra maneuvers that'll help us out. A practical application of this. We're going to be traveling on city streets where you may be coming from a wide boulevard to a narrower side street or alley, or vice versa, from a narrower street onto a wider boulevard. I mean, of course, we'll have some considerations like lane dividers, not being able to use the lane with opposing traffic in it, which is a little bit different than a race scenario. But it is still true you may have more road or less road available to you, in which case the theoretical cornering I was just talking about needs to be modified. Here, most similar to what I was just saying, we're in a narrow road here, so we want to use this width as much as possible to widen the radius of our exit. Right? So here we come in, and we're trying to hit this apex early to get that straight line. Here, however, we don't have a lot of width to work with. So we'd want to take that corner later. Call the apex kind of the center of our curve. So right here, making a sharper turn because we don't have this width to extend our exit. Right here we need to get in early and let the car use this space under acceleration. Okay? Earlier corner, later corner. Okay. Any questions before we go on? The best way is to feel this in the car. So why don't you meet me at the abandoned airfield and we can do a little hands-on, and I will teach you a couple moves like the Bootlegger Turn and the J-Turn to help add to your arsenal if we need to get out of a sticky situation. All right, sound good? Great. I will see you there soon. Well, if we're gonna learn a bootlegger turn, I figured the best way is in a bootlegger car like this. Great old Ford. So let's get into the vehicle here. And to start things off, just want you to get a feel for braking. So to accelerate up, you get on the brakes and want to feel that pressure. Feel that weight transfer. Going straight again. So apply those brakes. Feel how you can apply more as that weight transfers. And if you slam them on, right, locking up those tires. So let's just then work on applying the gas, braking and turning, staying nice and smooth onto the brakes. Just a turn, see a little too much there. The rear end came out. And if you start to skid or slide, you want to turn in the direction of the slide. And what does that really mean? So if you turn and you lose grip at the rear, the car is going to start rotating. If the right rear is trying to go up front, it's coming around from the right, we turn the wheel to the right to counteract that skid. It's coming from the left, turn the wheel left. Call that steering into the skid. If that's confusing to remember, just steer the direction you want to go, right? If the right is coming this way, you actually want it to be going more straight. So we're going to turn the wheel to be more straight. If it was skidding on the left, I'm going to turn left because that's going to keep you pointed down the road. If you get into a slide and you start to apply that steering, when the tires grip, it's going to straighten out the car right, but it may keep going. Catching that second slide in the other direction can be very challenging. The car can whip through that very quickly and you'll start to spin. Remember, if you start to spin, both feet in. Get on the clutch and the brake. You're not going to save it from the spin. You just want it to come to a stop as quickly as possible. All right, well, let's get back to our mission here. Just controlling the car, trying to slow, use maximum grip. If we brake, turn, and give it too much gas, right, see? We lose control of the car because we asked the rear wheels to do more than they were capable of. Exceeded the total friction available tire circle we were looking at, and then they will skid out like that. You see, it was hard to catch. All right, so if you've got a feel for that, I'm going to show you the bootlegger turn. Now, this is a technique that was developed back in the old days of Prohibition. The authorities were chasing you and you wanted to turn around to blow back past them. You would whip the car around 180 degrees and accelerate in the other direction. And you need to do this while staying on the road, so you have to do it in a limited amount of space. This is going to apply the different things that we've been learning. We're going to accelerate up to a certain speed, and then we'll probably start the maneuver about 25 to 30 miles an hour. So I want you faster than that. So we'll get on the brakes initially. That'll help start that weight transfer, give you good grip on those front wheels for starting to swing the car around. Then we're going to use the handbrake. And by jerking the handbrake, it'll lock those rear wheels. They suddenly lose traction, and that end of the car is going to skid. That's actually going to swing us around. As it does, I get back on the clutch, back in gear, apply gas to accelerate out. We'll need to steer to make sure we're straight. So let's just give it a quick run. I will demonstrate. Just get up to speed here. Put on some brake turn, the handbrake, straightening out and back on the gas. All right, in the other direction. Right. It's a pretty simple maneuver. There's a few pieces that you do have to get right with the timing. So why don't you go ahead and give it a shot here, okay? All right, so let's accelerate up. There you go. And get on the brakes. Yeah, well, what happened there? You're on the brakes, and then you turned in, but the car didn't turn. Now, why is that? Well, going heavy on the brakes like that locked up those wheels. They've exceeded their grip. When you turn, they don't have any traction to make that turn. So the car just keeps going straight, right? So more gentle on the brakes so you don't lock those wheels. That way when you turn, you'll be able to get that rotation to happen. Then once you've started to rotate, handbrake to lock the rear wheels to help them skid around, okay? Let's try it one more time. Brakes turn in. There it is. Up. Almost. Pretty good. Got rotated around, and then what happened? So it went straight, eager to go, so hit the gas really hard. You're spinning the tires. There's not a lot of lateral grip because you've spent it all on acceleration and broken them loose by overpowering them. So you got that kind of fishtailing as the car was sliding, all right? Very close though. We'll give it one more effort. Hands 9 and 3. Go ahead and turn around and give a little more space here. Alright, so up on the gas, brakes, swing it around, straightening out. Good. A little slow there on the exit, so one more time. Back on the gas. A little over controlled again. Almost there. Just give it one more shot. There it is. And back on the gas, and you are going. All right, very good. Nice, so you felt that. Yeah, it's all about managing those tires. Using brakes to give yourself some turning power, handbrake, lock up those rear tires and get you rotating. Make sure you're getting straightened back out and applying power in a straight line. And that lets you change direction quickly in a small amount of space. Alright, so that is the bootlegger turn. And it's basically a hand brake turn. If you're going around a hairpin, you can apply the same technique. Alright, now let's do the J-turn, which is effectively very similar, just in reverse. So what we're going to do is we're going to accelerate backwards. We'll whip the wheel. We don't really have to lock anything up, so that's going to have a pretty strong turning moment from doing that. Again, it's going to whip us around 180 degrees. We'll accelerate away, all right? So we're going to get on the accelerator. And spin the wheel. Straightening out as we get back on the power. And heading back down the road, all right? Turn around again with our bootlegger turn. And again, let's try that. We're just going to back up, whip the wheel around, and be good to go. And we are headed the other way. All right, I'm gonna let you try it now. Why don't you go for it, okay? Okay, reverse, reverse, reverse. Pop that wheel, straightening out as you're on the gas. Very good, you nailed it. Let me give it one more just to be sure. Reverse, reverse, reverse. Spin the wheel, get it around, back on the gas. Straighten yourself out. You are golden. Very good. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about vehicle selection now that you've got some moves under your belt. And we'll try this in a front-wheel drive car instead of a rear-wheel drive car, just so you can get the different feel for it, okay? Perfect. All right, that's our beautiful 1932 Ford Deluxe 5-window coupe. Now, when it comes to what car we would want to use, as I said, we want to keep things discreet. You know, an Audi could be a good choice. The good thing is, they're pretty common now. They can look discreet, not just a fancy choice anymore, but a humble wagon can have plenty of power for making an escape while still being unassuming. Of course, it would give us all-wheel drive, which could be an asset in certain situations. The Bentley Bentayga might be a little flashy for what we're looking for. BMWs might attract attention, even though they're also pretty common. Now, this 1987 Buick Regal GNX, a number of years back, this would have been an ideal choice. Looks fairly low-key and normal, but packing tons of power under the hood. Problem with this nowadays is it's entering more of a classic car status. You might have collectors trying to start a conversation with you, people trying to take photos. Cadillac could be good. Unlikely to attract a lot of attention from cops, has some get up and go. But in a perfect world, looking for something a lot more humble. Chevy Super Sport, pretty, it's gonna fly under the wire generally. Like I said, a Nissan Sentra is ideal. A little Mitsubishi, the kind of car that people just really aren't going to tune into. Of course, some operations we might be using a simple panel van. We need to transport lots of heavy equipment. A police interceptor, of course. Can get these pretty cheap. You know, people are gonna think of you as a cop, not as a criminal, but that may lead to cops wanting to chat with you, so some risk there. Now, of course, this is the most ideal of all possible vehicles. 1993 Ford Mustang, the SVT Cobra R is incredibly powerful and stylish. Really an ideal vehicle for any performance situation. The only drawback here being, of course, it is flashy, doesn't have a lot of room for other occupants, and may again invite some collector interest that we don't want. So let's just grab a Dodge. Right. Hellcat, way too flashy and loud. People are going to take notice. But this Dodge Dart GT, it's got 4 doors, a little bit of oomph, but it's not going to attract any attention at all. So this would be a great choice for us to make a getaway under the radar. So here we are, the Dodge Dart. It is front wheel drive, so it's just going to feel a little different. And so let's go ahead and have you just again do a little braking and cornering to get a feel, and then we can again try the bootlegger turn and J-turn so you can just see how it's different. Alright, so let's get up to speed here. And you're getting on the brakes, making the turn. Right, and if you're putting on gas, right, see, drifting to the outside of the corner because you're forcing those wheels to try to turn and accelerate at the same time. You lose that front end grip and the ability to turn in, so you struggle. So do you need to get slowed down and then slower to get power back on, getting more straight before you do so. Makes sense. Braking, turning in, then feeding that power back on. Okay? When a car turns less than we want it to and pushes towards the outside of a corner, call that understeer. It turns more than we want, losing the rear end, having that skid. The car over rotates. We call that oversteer. Front wheel drive, more prone to understeer. So the setup, the suspension of the car can affect whether a car understeers or oversteers. Passenger road cars, of course, set up generally to understeer, since that is a safer condition for drivers than the rear end whipping around. All right, so you'll have to work with that. So why don't we try a bootlegger turn in the front wheel drive car? Let's get up to speed, brakes, turn in, and back on the power. Handbrake on the rear wheels works just the same as a rear wheel drive car. Of course, you need to be more straight with the front wheels in the front wheel drive to accelerate out of there. Back on the power. See, I gotta get straightened out there to be able to get that power back down. And why don't you go ahead and try the J-turn as well, just to get a feel here. Reverse, reverse, reverse. Straightening out. A little overturn there, starting to go off the road. Try it the other direction. Reverse, reverse, reverse. Spin. Correcting. Back on the power. And away you go. Alright, so that gives you a feel. Front wheel drive versus rear wheel drive. It's a nice humble vehicle to keep that low profile. And that should give you a good intro into getaway driving. I think you've got a feel for it. I feel comfortable you taking on the role. So I think at this point we should go take a look at the actual area around the bank. The map is not the territory. So let's head into the city and do a little reconnaissance run past the bank, okay? Alright, let's do it. Alright, let's get in the car and drive around. Let's take a look at the actual territory here. Just back out and get on the road. Turn right onto Vinewood. Just be careful. Remember, we're not attracting attention. Keep an eye on those pedestrians here. Make sure we have a clear path out of here. Don't want to get busted for something stupid. Alright, so let's head up the hill here towards the bank. Got a red light here, we'll stop. Just follow the laws, we're just normal law-abiding citizens. Cool as a cucumber. Minimize distractions here. And there's our green light. Watch out for that guy turning left. And let's head up towards the bank here. Alright, stop at the light. One of the good things about this place is we have pretty good visibility down Vinewood Avenue. We're up on the hill here. Clear line of sight to the roads coming in. All right. Do have the tourists coming to visit the theater here. More cameras than we'd like, but that's okay. All right, so there's the bank off to our right, the front door here. Good visibility all around. Want to keep our eyes looking, our head on a swivel, always aware of our surroundings. I'm going to turn right here. We'll go past this street. Go past the bank here. If you go straight, you can head up into the hills, which fewer exits out of there, but less law enforcement coverage. Let's hang a right. There's a lot there, but it's exposed. A couple blocks down, there's a parking garage we can use. Can stash a car, make a switch. No one's gonna be able to tail us. Again, if we go left here, can get out of the city. It's a possibility. We'll be on the highway. Make a good exit, but could be followed. We're gonna hang a right here. Just wait for the light. We're patient. We're calm. There we go. Gonna head towards the recording studios, the cylindrical building there. And got a green light here. And so there on the left is the parking garage. We will stash an alternative vehicle so we could make a switch and clear the area. Cops will have no idea what vehicle we're in. Alright, so just circling around here. Go back a couple blocks so we can get another angle on the bank. Gonna be hanging right up here. Gonna head up the hill towards the bank. The pill place for reference on the turn here. Alright, heading up the hill. Driving slowly, not attracting attention. We'll make a left here at the light. Clear out on Vinewood. Alright, so there is the bank. Quite a prominent advertising up above it. Give you a good view of it. Pretty major intersection here. Lots of traffic comes through here. We shouldn't stand out too much. Just wait for our left here. Hopefully this gives you a good view of the geography. Need to know it like the back of your hand. Alright. And as promised, there is the Up and Atom Burger. Told you it was nearby. Delicious stuff. Alright, so hopefully that's a good orientation. Let's head back downtown. Go out, have a drink. Hit the boozer with the chaps, that sort of thing. Down the hill, and we are on our way back to the downtown. Alright. I know it's gonna be smooth sailing from here on out. I have great faith in your ability.